Doctor Who vs. Scratchman, Part 12. The Black Knight charged at Garmer, swinging its sword. Despite its fantastic size, the mighty wolf backed away somewhat from the knight while the frost giants were also stopped in their tracks.
"I can assure you I've never met this gentleman before, but I do appreciate his help,"
the doctor said to his companions. The Black Knight enjoyed scaring the monsters just a little too much, and he almost let his guard down when Garmer jumped him. It was only thanks to Elena's warning that he evaded the monster in time. The Black Knight swung his sword at Garmer, who instantly retreated. Again, however, as the Black Knight followed its prey, one of the frost giants tried to intervene. It was not so lucky, however, as the Black Knight struck his sword straight into the beast's hand. The slash wound turned bright red and then caught fire, with the flames spreading their way across the beast's entire body. The rest of the giants and Garmer started to flee in response.
"They'll be back. We have to hurry,"
the Black Knight said.
"We?"
the doctor said.
"I appreciate you helping us there, old boy, but I'm afraid I'll need to know a bit more about you."
"We don't have time. I am on your side, Time Lord. That monster is using your vessel to try and rip its way into your reality. If we don't act fast, another universe will fall to Scratchman."
"Well, when you put it like that,"
the doctor said,
"I don't suppose you could maybe bring the portal down the mountain? It's just a rather steep climb for a man of my years."
"Of course. I'll just make my own,"
the Black Knight said as he created a large portal to Scratchman's domain.
"I will have to accompany you through the portal. It will kill anything that Scratchman doesn't want getting through, but fortunately, I have a way of bypassing that."
The doctor looked somewhat embarrassed.
"Well, just as well we didn't make it up there then, eh?"
the Time Lord said sheepishly.
"Sorry about almost getting you all killed."
"You've never apologized for that before," Elena joked.
"Yes, well, at least it would have been over,"
one of the elves added, somewhat grimly.
"We need to move, now,"
the Black Knight interrupted as it rushed them all through the portal. The inside of the portal was like a black abyss at first, but all of its occupants were soon assaulted by nightmarish skeleton creatures.
"The souls of the people who tried to cross the breach on the mountain before. If all else fails, Scratchman uses them as backup. Don't worry, though, they shouldn't be a problem,"
the knight said as he slashed at the creatures, shattering them into nothing but dust. After a few more seconds, the group suddenly found themselves in a small dungeon filled with horrible bug-like creatures crawling around their feet. In the distance, the doctor could also see a figure chained to the wall, though it was dark and he could barely make out who it was. While the others got their breath back from the cold, the doctor, who was less affected from being a Time Lord, approached the figure who he could see as he got closer greatly resembled Scratchman himself, only with a full head of hair and a beard. It was the hero whose face Scratchman had taken. This was where the monster kept him locked up, forced to watch as his image became one that was despised by the rest of his universe.
"I don't care what you do to me anymore,"
the figure said pitifully.
"I'm the doctor. I'm here to help you. You can't help me." "Well, nothing ventured, nothing gained, as I always say," the doctor replied as he lifted out his sonic screwdriver to try and loosen the chains.
"He's right. You can't help him,"
the Black Knight interrupted.
"Not only is that trinket incapable of harming anything devised by Scratchman, but even if it could, those chains are the only thing holding him together. He's lived so far beyond his natural lifespan that the second you release him from those chains, he will crumble to dust,"
the knight continued.
"Maybe we should still release him,"
Elena said with regret.
"We won't need to. When this world collapses, he will be free,"
the Black Knight said as he left the dungeon, though not before taking a bow to the fallen hero first. Upstairs was a hall, made up of all the surviving rooms of the castle, filled with hordes of Scratchman's enemies and former servants working together against the frost giants and the griffins. Elena recognized the leader of the harpies among them. She was clawing a frost giant in the face, and in her relentless fury, tore the monster's eyes out, causing it to fall on 3 griffins behind. Elena tried to call out to the harpy for help, but not only could the harpy not hear her amidst the chaos, the Black Knight quickly silenced her.
"We can sneak past them. I know a secret passage. Come on,"
the Black Knight said. As they crept past the 2 mighty armies, down a small passage, the doctor asked the Black Knight what his story was. He couldn't bear the thought of not knowing at least something about this world before it vanished forever, though Elena and Yerox found it more than a little inappropriate that was what the Doctor seemingly cared about more than anything else.
I come from your universe, Doctor. I was once a mighty warrior. Some called me a hero. Some called me a villain. I was one of the many fools who came to Earth thinking he could slay the legendary monster Scratchman. But not only did he defeat me and drag me to his domain, but he made me his servant.
Hopefully you're not still his servant. If you are, I may need to retire. That's 3 times in the same day I've walked into an inescapable situation. Normally, I only try to do that once, the Doctor joked.
I was never really his servant. He tortured me like he did all of the other monsters that obey him. Some refused to ever obey him and were sent into the lake. Others were broken and became his lapdogs. I was more practical, shall we say.
What do you mean? The Doctor asked.
He never broke me. I have been working against him from within all this time. How else do you think the rebels knew you were coming? How do you think they even escaped in the first place? Sadly, however, in order to be accepted by him, I had to do things. I had to bring people from the Earth to here. I was one of Scratchman's few servants who could cross dimensions for him, which is why I was able to bypass that little defense of his. I've condemned thousands of people to this pit, Doctor. Soon we will see if it will have been worth it.
Unfortunately, as they reached the end of the passage, which led to a staircase to Scratchman's lair, the hideous beast Garmer came smashing through the wall nearest the staircase, and it wasn't alone. Amit, having escaped its cave being flooded, had also tore its way through the castle, devouring any creature unfortunate to cross its path, or rather fortunate given the circumstances. The 2 giants approached the time travelers and their companions cautiously, with both being terrified of the Black Knight's sword.
Now, doggy. You know what happened the last time,
the Black Knight said as he nudged his sword forward, causing both monsters to back away slightly. After a few more minutes, however, neither beast backed down, and so the Black Knight was forced to attack both. Waving his sword at them, he sent both beasts running, but Amit managed to get in a lucky hit with its paw and send the knight flying through the air. The Black Knight hoisted himself up almost instantly, but unfortunately Amit, even in that short amount of time, picked up 3 of the elves and devoured them. The Black Knight then jumped onto the back of Amit, holding his sword up high, though for some reason he did not strike it down. Garmer then attacked Amit and knocked the knight off the creature's back. Amit, in retaliation, struck Garmer. Despite Amit's vastly smaller size, it appeared to be strong enough to fight back.
Go, all of you! I'll hold them off!
The knight shouted.
That thing will devour you,
the leader of the elves said.
Please, compared to some of the other sacrifices I've made, that's nothing,
the Black Knight insisted as he hurried them up the staircase. The 2 gigantic beasts clashed, with both ripping massive chunks out of the other's flesh, only for their wounds to instantly heal. The Black Knight kept his distance, waiting for the right moment to strike. After a few more moments, Garmer was able to pin down the smaller Amit and started to throttle his enemy. Seizing the chance, the Black Knight struck Garmer from behind, causing the giant wolf to be engulfed in flames. Before Amit could pull himself back up, the Black Knight jumped onto the monster's back and held his sword to its throat.
I know you are intelligent. That's why I spared you instead of that animal,
he said.
Do as I say, or you'll end up like him. Understand? Take me to Scratchman.
The Doctor and the others, meanwhile, hurried up the staircase which led to a tiny cliff where Scratchman and the TARDIS were perched. Below, the Doctor could see what was left of the castle crumbling into the black abyss. All of the monsters were now struggling just to hold on, though the Harpy Queen flew to where Scratchman was, with the devil holding her back with his psychic powers.
His power's fading. Otherwise, he'd just vaporize her. Now's our chance, the Doctor said.
Before the others could disagree, the Doctor ran to confront Scratchman.
That's not possible. How did you escape my hell?
Scratchman said in both shock and anger.
Let's just say you're losing your grip in more ways than one,
the Doctor replied as he looked up at the endless black above.
Not long now, Harry. Why not just admit defeat? You had a good run. A couple of 100 trillion years or so.
That's more than most universes last, the Time Lord continued.
Scratchman just laughed.
You're honestly offering me the chance to bow out gracefully, the devil sneered. You're finished, Harry. You can barely hold on to the TARDIS. Even you underestimated how little time this universe has left. Your spare hell dimensions have run out trying to keep it afloat, the doctor said confidently.
Scratchman insisted.
Your machine can't hold out for much longer. I am the master of this domain.
While Scratchman was talking, the doctor simply ran towards the TARDIS. Scratchman tried to stop him, but the elves, Elena, and Yerox all attacked the demon, who was now too weak to fight back. They all jumped him, and for a few minutes were actually able to hold Scratchman down. The elves kicked and beat him furiously. They had waited for this moment for so long. Sadly, however, Scratchman soon threw them all off, and sent another 2 elves tumbling over the edge and into the mass of monsters below. Old Harry resumed his true form, a 50-foot-tall winged demon made of fire, though in actual fact, Scratchman wasn't even sure if this was his true form. He had certainly used it the longest, but for all he knew, he took it from one of the many universes he conquered. They tended to get mixed up in his old age. Scratchman didn't like to use his demon body, as in that form he absorbed more power and therefore would use up his few supplies. He had no choice, however, as most of his pets, the frost giants and the griffins, weren't even fighting for him now. They too were simply scrambling to try and find a place to escape from the abyss. Scratchman prepared to bring down a ball of fire on all of the doctor's companions, but he was struck from behind by Amit, who leaped dozens of feet through the air, with the Black Knight riding on his back. Though they weren't able to harm Scratchman, nevertheless they brought him crashing back down to the floor below the cliff. Scratchman was shocked at first to see both the Black Knight and Amit, what he believed were 2 of his most loyal servants, attacking him, but within a few seconds he blasted them both over the edge of the ruins of the castle, though Amit managed to hold on with his claws, with the Black Knight in turn holding on to Amit. The great devourer's weight caused the ruins to give way and fell into the oblivion below, while the Black Knight jumped over Amit's head as he fell and clung onto the side of the cliff. The doctor, meanwhile, having made his way into the TARDIS, was horrified to see the state his machine had been reduced to by this monster, but he kept a level head as he started to tamper with the console. The doctor tried to reset the system, but Scratchman's hold, though weakening by the minute, was still too strong. He couldn't use the TARDIS's power to try and drain Scratchman either, as the beast was aware. The Time Lord then had an idea. He siphoned off all of the TARDIS's energy into the fast return switch. The doctor hated having to do it, as it was extremely painful for the TARDIS, but after what she had been through with Scratchman, she didn't object. Scratchman wouldn't be able to access the TARDIS's power in the time he had left, as it was a different part of the console to the area the power was normally stored, that it had already taken Scratchman time to break into. Scratchman started to rip the cliff apart in rage, except for a tiny patch around the TARDIS. 2 more elves went tumbling into the mass of monsters below, as did Elena, but fortunately, the leader of the Harpies managed to catch all 3 and flew back towards the TARDIS, while the Black Knight also crawled up in time and held his sword defiantly to Scratchman. The doctor, despite Scratchman's best efforts, was able to open the 2 doors by sending a small power surge to them. The 6 remaining elves, including their leader, the Harpy, the Knight, Elena, and Yerox, fled into the machine just as the last piece of the cliff vanished. Neither the Harpy nor the elves even noticed that it was bigger on the inside at first, they were so desperate. Scratchman started to strike the TARDIS from the outside, but it was no use.
You miserable, wretched!
Scratchman shouted in a futile rage at the doctor. Though it wasn't able to leave Scratchman's domain, the inside of the TARDIS started to return to normal. The hideous green swamp on the floors vanished. The walls returned to their pristine white look with the gold roundels. Elena and Yerox couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, though neither were foolish enough to believe they were out of the woods yet.
What's the catch?
There always is one, Elena asked with dread.
We have to wait him out. All of the power is siphoned into a tiny little area he can't reach. Well, he probably could, but not in the time he has left. We have a few minutes at most before this reality crumbles. Only problem is, even in that time, all the energy being trapped in one area might cause the TARDIS to burn itself up. Even if we make it out, the TARDIS may not be able to redeposit the energy properly. She could lose a large chunk of her lifespan.
possibly about half, and it will lose a number of features. Its size will also be reduced to less than half, too.
What features will it lose? Elena asked.
Not sure. It's a risk that we'll have to take, but that's not even the main issue. All of those people out there, fighting for survival, there's a chance I might be able to help them, but
Leave them, alien,
the Harpy Queen said, much to his surprise.
None of us expected to make it out of this. I don't intend to go on living after this war, either. As long as we help to bring down that monster, that's enough,
the Harpy stated firmly.
I'm sorry. I understand you've lost hope, old girl, but I'm not just going to sit and watch more people die because of that infernal bounder, the Doctor said proudly.
We'll never get all of them in the TARDIS, Yerox countered.
I never said that we would. I'm going to do something incredibly dangerous and unprecedented. I'm going to link all of the creatures out there to the TARDIS's camouflage.
It's what?
The Harpy asked.
The outside of the TARDIS is in a different dimension than the inside. It's how it's bigger on the inside. The outside is the way it interacts with the world out there. Without that, the inside would just be a pocket dimension cut off from all realities. At the same time, it's the inside that moves the outside to different places in time and space. Now, if I'm able to link those aliens to the outside, then the control panel here will be able to drag them away too. I won't take them back to Earth, which is where the ship is going. I've mapped out the coordinates for where they'll be teleported. It's a small, uninhabited planet in a galaxy that is mostly uninhabited as well. It'll be a good place for all those life forms out there to start over.
They can't start over. After what that demon has put them through, all they know is pain and suffering. You will be bringing monsters into your own universe,
the Harpy said.
Separated from Scratchman's influence, they won't be compelled to violence anymore. Some of them, yes, were willing participants, but
they still have the memories of suffering under his rule,
the Harpy Queen interrupted. The leader of the elves was quick to agree with the Harpy.
They aren't worth saving, Time Lord. You'd simply be prolonging their agony, he said.
You say that, but if Scratchman were really all he was cracked up to be, then Elena, Yerox, and I wouldn't have gotten this far now, would we? As it was, dozens of his servants or slaves held on to themselves and helped us get to where we are now. Let's return the favor.
The others knew the Doctor was right, though the Harpy Queen was the most reluctant. She couldn't bear the thought of her and the others suffering being for nothing if the Doctor failed. There was also the fact that none of the rest of her kind had survived the battle. Even if they were to make it out of this, she would still be alone. The Doctor ripped a massive cable out of the TARDIS floor, which he opened up using his sonic screwdriver.
Point this at the rabble below. It will link them all to the TARDIS chameleon circuit. I'll dislodge some of the power and the fast return switch towards it. This will mean we will be more vulnerable, the Doctor said to Elena, who took the cable.
Then you can't do it,
the Harpy shouted.
We can't give Scratchman even a fraction of a chance,
she insisted. The Doctor, however, simply ignored the Harpy and opened the doors.
What can we do?
Yerox asked.
I'm going to need all of you to help me. Scratchman won't be able to make the TARDIS create a rip for him, but he will be able to send things in here to attack us. They'll just be illusions, but we'll all need to stick together, he explained.
Elena pointed the cable at the rabble below, who were now all crowded in one tiny room that was all that remained, along with the tiny cliff the TARDIS was perched on of their entire universe. Scratchman hovered above in his giant flaming form with all of the monsters below cowering in fear. Their fear was keeping him going for now, but it wouldn't be enough to sustain him for long. As soon as Elena blasted the rabble with energy from the TARDIS, Scratchman started to fill the TARDIS full of hallucinations. The floors turned back into a green swamp, and several of the elves and even the Doctor himself began to sink. Several slug-like humanoid creatures began to emerge from the floor and started to attack everyone. The slug monsters attacked Elena and pulled the cable out of her hands, but Yerox, who was desperate to prove himself after the last fiasco with the Daleks, reached for the cable as she threw it at him and continued to fire it at the rabble outside. The Doctor, meanwhile, grabbed onto the console, but each time he tried to reach for the controls, the slugs would try and stop him. Elena, Yerox, and the elves all tried to help him, but the hands got in their way too, while several tentacles soon emerged from the ceiling and surrounded the Harpy as she tried to fly towards the Doctor.
The middle of the console turned into fire, with Scratchman's face appearing on it. You honestly thought you could outwit me. I have devoured entire universes trillions of years before you were even born. Universes you can't even imagine. You are just a tiny little speck of one insignificant universe, with delusions of grandeur. Do you understand? The apparition of Scratchman said.
No, Harry, old boy. You're a cheap, tired old hack. You've spent so long in this one universe, you've become lazy and boring.
The doctor replied as he proudly thrust his hand through the flaming mass at the center of the console. The others at first screamed at the doctor to stop, but they soon saw the doctor's hand was completely unaffected.
I told you it's an illusion. He has nowhere near the power left to make these things solid anymore. Maintaining this place and trying to hold up the TARDIS have taxed him. These illusions only hurt you if you let them now,
the doctor said as he effortlessly pulled himself free from the slug monsters, which faded away.
Well, Harry, I can't say it's been pleasant. It has been interesting, but I hope you'll forgive me as we don't keep in touch.
The doctor gloated as he finally operated the controls, though just as he did, a yellow light engulfed the TARDIS and all of the aliens. It was not Scratchman, however, but the unintended side effect of the doctor tampering with the TARDIS's powers. The light caused the doctor, the elves, the aliens, and his companions tremendous agony for a few minutes. It got so bad Yerox almost felt like jumping out of the TARDIS. But eventually, as the last of Scratchman's power faded, his grip on the TARDIS vanished, and the doctor deposited most of the TARDIS's energy back into its proper place, allowing the time machine to take off properly. All of the creatures vanished with the TARDIS, while Scratchman was utterly helpless. Scratchman looked down at the last tiny little patch of his castle, all that was left of an entire universe as it faded away into nothing. The monster screamed in anger through the eternal nothingness he now found himself trapped in. He vowed that he would make the doctor suffer, that he would keep regressing him back through each of his 10 previous lives, only to keep killing him again and again. But it was no use. For now at least, Scratchman, for the first time in his miserable existence, felt as helpless as his victims.
I'm not beaten yet, the demon kept trying to assure itself. I have minions on the outside. They will find a way to free me, and when they do, Gallifrey shall be the first world I crush. What's going on?
Yerox said as Elena nudged him awake.
Have I died again?
He asked.
No. Unless this is some kind of trick, we made it. We're back on Earth,
Elena said with joy. The console was burnt black, but it still seemed operational as the doctor tinkered away with it.
Everything seems to be fine for now. Though we've lost about 3/4 of space, the doctor said.
Please tell me the library isn't gone, Elena asked.
No, it's fine. And so is the garden, Yerox,
the doctor explained.
That's okay, Doctor. I don't think I'm too eager to go back there after what happened with the Daleks. That's my own personal hell now,
Yerox replied.
Speaking of which, did it work? Did you send those creatures to another planet? Elena asked the doctor. As far as I know, yes. I'm not sure if I've done the right thing, though, Elena. But after everything they went through, I just couldn't leave them.
I understand, Elena said.
I just can't believe we're back on Earth. How did you know Scratchman's tricks were just illusions?
I know Pan's were, but Old Harry, as you called him, was a step up from that.
I didn't know for sure. I just wasn't scared. Don't get me wrong, I do value my life, the doctor said. Perhaps a little too much. But when you reach my age, you learn that there are some things that you just can't fight, like death, and you learn to accept them. You never stop being scared to some extent, but you know there is no point in fighting the inevitable. Scratchman, despite what he claimed, was something that could be fought, the doctor continued with a wry smile as he checked the controls. Where are the elves, the knight, and the harpy? Yerox asked. They've gone outside. They wanted to see our world in all its glory. Or rather, your world, Elena. Though I do consider the Earth sort of a second home, you know, the doctor said. Still, I understand. After living in Scratchman's home, it must be. The doctor stopped as he looked down at the console.
What is it? Elena asked.
We've landed in the year 1998, decades after we last left the island. I do hope there aren't any people around, or else we might cause a scene.
Outside, the doctor could see the harpy sitting atop a massive tree, while several of the elves were marveling at the simple sight of the birds around them, and the knight stood silently. The TARDIS had taken them to the exact same spot they had first landed on the island. The harpy was crying.
It's beautiful. It's just like the legends of our world. I never thought I'd... It's not fair. Those who were younger than me fought harder, were braver, could not be here to see it,
the harpy said. The leader of the elves was also mournful of his fallen comrades.
Doctor,
he asked,
when you sent those other creatures to the faraway planet, were you able to help the elves that still remained in?
I'm afraid not. Scratchman's spare hell dimensions were gone by the time I was able to do anything. All that remained was the castle. If I could, I would have helped, you know that.
I do know. And I'm grateful for everything you have done for us, Doctor. I just can't help but feel that this isn't over. Any second, Scratchman will emerge from the TARDIS and...
It's over. That monster will never die. But he'll never escape the prison we sealed him in,
the doctor said, though even he wasn't entirely sure of that.
I almost don't want it to be over. That way I won't have to let them down,
the leader replied.
You can now make sure that what your friends went through in that wasteland isn't forgotten by the rest of your people, the doctor continued.
What do you mean?
I'm going to take you home. The TARDIS is just working out what time period we can send you to so it won't be a problem. As for the Queen and the Knight, well, I suppose I could take them to the planet I sent the rest of Scratchman's minions to. That is where I belong, Doctor, the Knight said. I have done so much wrong. I must help show Scratchman's other minions the way forward.
We can't send the harpy there, Doctor. She was the last of her kind. There is no one there for her,
the elf leader protested.
Well, we'll see if we can find somewhere for her. If not, I always do have a spare room on the TARDIS. Though I'll have to actually check to see if I still do, the doctor said.
Before they left, however, the doctor, Yerox, and Elena decided to explore the island. Sadly, they discovered that in the decades since they were last there, the bodies had simply been left. A tear started to form in Elena's single eye as she thought of the brave people like Stanley who had given their lives to fight the greatest evil in the universe, but had been completely forgotten about.
I'm sorry, Elena, but no one could ever know what happened here. The world wasn't ready for it. To be honest, I'm not even sure any world is ready to know the truth about that monster, the doctor said. What happened here always had to be kept a secret. After everything all those people went through, the suffering they endured here and in the pit, and they're just left to rot, Elena said.
An entire universe and billions more before that suffered the same fate, Earthling,
the harpy said as she descended from the treetop.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, Elena said.
No, it's quite all right. We all only care about the people closest to us. Right now, I'd wager in this universe there are billions of life forms slaughtering one another. But does anyone care?
The harpy said grimly.
If that's the attitude you're going to have, then you might as well have let Scratchman won. I'm not going to deny that the universe can be a horrible place, but compassion will always emerge even in the darkest places of the universe. Even in Scratchman's realm, he couldn't eliminate it completely, which is why we're standing here, and he's floating about in an eternal nothingness. I can't even begin to imagine how hard it must be to lose your world, and I hope I never have to. But I can live on through you. Its history, its ideals, its culture. It all depends on what you choose to do with this second chance, the doctor said as he headed back to the TARDIS. The others were quick to follow, though the harpy, while angry at what she felt was the doctor's condescension, nevertheless took on board what he said to some extent. She wondered how she could possibly begin making sure her people's culture could continue to exist in this reality. The TARDIS has found a time to take you to, in your world's history. It's several thousands of years in the future from this point. Your planet will have changed in the meantime, to put it mildly, the doctor said to the elves. Are you sure you want to do this? I'm not familiar with the history of your planet, I'm afraid. It could be a good future, or it could be the doctor asked.
We'll cope, the leader of the elves said. If we can survive Scratchman's realm, we can survive anything.
Well then, let's not waste any more time, the Doctor said as he took the TARDIS to its next destination. The Harpy Queen, meanwhile, ultimately decided to be placed on the planet with the Knight and Scratchman's other freed slaves. She had contemplated traveling with the Doctor, but ultimately, much like the Knight, she felt that her true purpose in this new reality would be to help the other victims of the monster that had destroyed hers. The Doctor joked that he couldn't help but be a bit offended that after having survived thousands of years in hell, she couldn't take his company for even a short while, but he understood. Once the Harpy left, the Doctor, Elena, and Yerox were finally able to put this nightmarish experience behind them. Sadly, however, that was easier said than done. Not only would the Doctor have to make more repairs to the TARDIS, but Elena in particular had been left shaken by the entire experience, despite her claims to the contrary. Pan's vision in particular of her parents sitting by the window waiting for their only daughter to come home constantly tormented her. Every time she slept, every time she even closed her single eye, she saw her mother and father, old and frail, and finally her father all alone, heartbroken over the loss of the woman he loved and his daughters. Even though she knew it was most likely false, the tiny little grain of doubt was enough to almost destroy her. Worse, there was nothing Elena could do to ease the pain. If she told the Doctor she wanted to stop traveling with him, then there was always the possibility that in his attempt to get her back, he would end up, as Pan predicted. Take her to after her parents' death, with her personal timeline being set as never reuniting with them. Things would be very different for Elena from now on. She no longer had the same carefree attitude to this kind of life that the Doctor had, though that wasn't necessarily a bad thing. Yerox, in contrast, however, had ultimately gained confidence from this adventure. Despite what had happened with the Daleks, the fact that he had overcome his fear at the end, during Scratchman's illusion, had surprised even Yerox and convinced the clone that he did perhaps have a strength within him that he didn't even realize himself. The trio's next adventure, however, would really put that to the test, though that's a story for another time. For now, at least, on the long journey through time and space, the three time travelers could rest. The end.